Well, welcome to Bird Brag, everybody. Our second episode. I'm Greg Carson,
I'm Steve Scott.
and we are about to get underway. First off, what are you drinking, Steve?
Um, I kind of changed it up a little bit. I don't know if you can see in the camera here, but I'm going a
No,
Miller
no
Lite.
one in the podcast could see in the camera here.
Well, you can. That's all that matters.
So what do you got?
I got Miller Lite.
Oh, well, you mixed it up.
Yeah, before I had a Greg Carson, but now I'm Miller Lite.
So I have a Loner 4.1% dark mild ale from Brothers Craft Brewing Company in Harrisonburg, Virginia.
Someone's fancy.
I told you I was going to get fancy.
I
Okay,
thought
ready?
that was for later. You didn't give me enough time to prepare.
Cheers.
Cheers. I will tell you, if we need it, I have a bottle of tequila in my freezer right now.
Yeah, we're going to need that. I know that for sure.
Okay.
All right. So in the last episode, you told me about the Ron Swanson sock.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
And it was pretty good.
Right. The Ron Swanson sock. I don't know if I'll go with pretty good, but it was the Ron Swanson sock.
Oh, you know what? I meant to, hold on. I'm going to get stuff to take notes.
Notes?
Yeah.
Do you have a test?
I feel like it's test time. I'm going to take notes.
I changed hats for the afternoon episode. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, good. We might get into that topic too.
Oh, good.
I was thinking about that. Thinking about be a good topic to get into. All right. So, all right. What are our last time? What did we talk about last time?
So we talked about the Swainson sock.
Oh, yes.
Long distance migrant, of course.
Okay. And
I thought maybe
go
ahead.
No. Well, what I thought it would be good is to explain to the listeners why it's called Bird Brag. Why is it Bird Brag and not Turtle Talk?
Well, yeah, and that is a really good question because in my wife's phone, she has me listed as Turtle Talker for whatever reason. Let's just leave it at that for now. But I think I was talking to a friend of mine who you may or may not know about the website eBird, where birders around the world record their bird sightings. And he came up with the catchphrase, and I may be wrong here, but it was something along the lines of, that was a way, putting lists of birds that you see on eBird is a way to kind of brag to people. And so he said, "That's a bird brag. Put it in your bird bag." Is that it, or is that not it? I mean, it's pretty close.
Pretty close. So that's the genesis of Bird Brag. I forget where we were when that actually occurred. Was that in Vegas?
I was thinking we were in my backyard.
That could have been, yeah.
But I don't know.
Same thing. His backyard looks just like Vegas.
Exactly. Except no waitresses.
All right. So what are our choices? And we said we weren't going to just stay with birds and Bird Brag.
Of course.
We were gonna expand this. So what are our choices today?
So we have two choices for today. One is the Sacramento Pike Minnow, which, as we know from last episode, is one of your favorite birds, even though it's a fish.
Yeah.
And then the other option is the Black Phoebe, which is a fairly common bird in most of the country.
And the one of the best parts about you teaching me about this is because I believe there is such thing as a Black Phoebe, but you could be making it up.
Right.
I've heard the word pike. I've heard the word minnow. Like, I know those things.
Yeah. But who would mash them together? Nobody.
Maybe. Yeah.
No.
All right. So what are you leaning towards today?
I'm leaning towards the pike minnow.
Okay.
It's a favorite of mine.
All right. So the pike minnow, we're going to go immediately right off birds and right into fish.
Sure.
Okay.
You think it's too quick?
So lay it on me. Why? And so you guys know, I'm not going to give Steve's private email, but it's a deviation of pike minnow. So he's really really stretching himself here. So what? And it always threw me. I like, again, learning. So why pike minnow?
Why pike minnow? So I guess I have to go back a little bit to kind of the evolution of California's fish fauna, if that's not a little too obtuse for this podcast.
I
But
mean, it starts deep.
yeah. But if you think about a minnow, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
That's small fish.
A small fish, right?
Well, no, I mean, the first thing I think about is Gilligan's Island. But,
okay. Second thing.
I mean, that's. But I mean, we're just going to get off Gilligan's Island that fast, okay? But the second thing would be a small fish. Yes,
a small fish. That's probably, if you ask that question to 100 people, that's what 95 of them would say, right?
Yeah.
Except for the people that are nerds like I am. So in California, through an accident of geology and evolution, minnows in California became kind of the dominant fish family as far as native fishes go. And you've heard of the term adaptive radiation, where, the Galapagos finches are the classic example, where this class of animals evolved to fill all these different niches. Well, that's kind of what minnows did in California. And so instead of having just all these little tiny minnows, which is what people think of, is minnows evolved to fill all these different niches in the natural streams and rivers of California. And so the pike minnow is actually a native minnow that's only found in California. And it has evolved to be kind of this large predatory fish, which is how it got the name pike put in front of minnow, because if you know the northern pike, it's a voracious fish that eats all other fish. The pike minnow kind of fills that same class in California, but it is in the minnow family, which is kind of different and unique in the history of California.
So, what size are we talking about here?
So the largest pike minnow on record is over a meter long, so over 3 feet long.
A yard of minnow. Oh, that was good. You hit me right in the. You got me right in the heart.
Over a yard of minnow, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and they're pretty neat. And part of the story of the pike minnow is.
So that's not what I imagine a minnow. So I can't tell you that I've laid eyes on a minnow, but what's a typical minnow, not a pike minnow? How big is that?
So the reality of it is minnows are all different sizes. One thing so the common, like koi that you see in koi ponds, those are actually in the minnow family as well. Oh, they're carp, basically. But they all have these certain characteristics that they have in common that make them minnows. And but typically, like you said, when we think of minnows, we think of these small fish, and a lot of them are really small. So a lot of minnows are what we call bait fish. That's what you use to fish for the fish that you want to catch to eat. But in California, we're fortunate to have a huge array of other minnows that are much larger. Sort of losing my train of thought here, Greg, but some of the interesting things about minnows is a lot of predatory fish have huge teeth in their jaws, like pike, for example, that we talked about, that this fish is kind of named after, have big sharp teeth. And if you grabbed them in their jaw, you'd get sliced up and your fingers would get sliced up. And when you fish for them, you have to use wire leaders because they'll chop right through your fishing line. Well, the minnows, they don't have any teeth in their jaws. All of their teeth are back in their throat, and they're called pharyngeal teeth. And so pike minnow, they have those sharp teeth, but they're just way back down in their throat. So that's one of the characteristics that separates the minnow family from kind of some of the other fishes. And it's interesting how the minnow family has evolved to fill all these niches, and their teeth, some of them have kind of molar form teeth, like our molars, because they eat plants. Like I was talking about koi or minnows, they have kind of molar teeth. In fact, if you if you pulled a tooth out of a koi, it would look a lot like our molars do. Whereas pike minnow, they have these sharp, long teeth that kind of rip the fish up as they go down the gullet to help grip the prey as well as to help cut it up for digestion.
All right, we're gonna put a pin in this human teeth and koi for later, but that one throws me.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
All right, so is this? Do we eat this fish? Does anyone eat this fish?
So I've never eaten them, but they're supposed to be really delicious, and they are sold in Asian fish markets, like in San Francisco and things like that. I have never eaten them, although I have caught smaller ones. I've never caught a really big one, but they're supposed to be pretty tasty. But like I said, that's something that I haven't personally experienced.
Yeah. Well, I could see, since it's your favorite, in honor of the fish, you don't want to do that. I mean,
well, maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's not like a bat in a wet market situation is where I was going with it. We could eat these fish.
Yeah. I think the risk of virus transmission to humans is fairly low in this case.
That's good. That's good.
We might want to ask Dr. Fauci.
Oh, Tony, I'll ring him after this. All right. So then, is part of do you have any part of helping these fish in your data in your job? Is this like something that you deal with at all?
Not really. We don't actually have pike minnow where I work, and we don't have to deal with them at all. And they are fairly common. They're native to the Sacramento San Joaquin River system and a couple other river systems in the state. The Los Angeles River system and the Pajaro, Salinas, and the Russian River, and the Upper Pitt River. And they've been introduced into a couple others. But for the most part, this is a California endemic fish. So it's only found in California, which is kind of one of the things that I like about it, since I'm a California kid. There are other pike minnow species like in the Colorado River and north of us in Oregon and Washington, but this one's found only in California.
We're not going to find a stray one in Norway. Like we might find one of those hawks or anything like that.
Yeah, they'd have to take a few other turns besides just one left. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right.
And they can't go through salt water.
No.
Well, they are found in like Sassoon Marsh at salinities like 5 parts per trillion, but any more salty than that, and they can't make it. Yeah.
That's about as salty as I am, 5 parts per trillion too.
Yeah, no, I agree. Anything more than that is overkill.
Yeah, I agree. So let's talk about coloration on these guys, because when you say carp and koi, and I think of these like different bright colors, like what's going on with these guys?
So not that at all. So there are, you know what, I've never shared a screen. I don't know how to do that. So maybe this isn't a good time, but they're pretty much just kind of silvery gray, as a lot of the minnows in California are not very colorful. They're kind of silvery gray. They get a little bit of orangish hue on their fins, especially during breeding season, and they will get a little brighter during breeding season. But in general, they're fairly nondescript coloration-wise. And the pike minnow is kind of a long, kind of have a tubular body shape, big jaw so they can catch big fish. It's kind of a long and skinny fish that's fast and can chase other fish and hunt them down. But coloration wise, they're pretty dull, actually. Just like me, honestly, if I'm being honest. That's why I'm attracted to them.
All right. I could dig this. I could dig it. But these aren't like obvious. This might sound like a dumb question because I'm dumb on these things and I wouldn't assume it, but it's not like they're eating other fish, but this isn't what they would call a bottom feeding fish.
No. There are minnows that are bottom feeding. The like one example would be the Sacramento sucker, and their mouth is actually on the bottom of their body because they do feed primarily on the bottom.
Okay.
But the pike minnow is not a bottom feeding fish. They will eat insects and other things like that, especially when they're smaller. But after they get about 6 to 8 inches long, they really focus mostly on eating other fish, including other pike minnow. If they find smaller pike minnow, that they have no qualms with cannibalizing them.
That doesn't seem right.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we're just different because we're people.
I mean, I wish I would have ate my young, but that's a
Yeah.
whole
I
different
mean, just think where you'd be now.
sort of. Oh man, I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah. It's kind of a dream.
Yeah. Let's just take a second and think about that. Okay, so how long do these things live for? What's the lifespan?
So they can live a pretty long time. Fish are kind of tough to age sometimes. Different ones you can age by their scales, sort of like counting the rings on a tree. You can age fish sometimes by their scales. But it's not quite as exact as that because they can have different factors that relate to how fast they grow.
Mm-hmm.
The rings on the tree, you have these pretty evident seasonal patterns, whereas on fish, it's not quite as clear cut. So they have aged them to 16 years through some of these techniques, but one, like I said, that's not exact, and two, that wasn't even like a meter long fish. So you have to guess that a fish that was a meter long would be even older than the 16 years. So I would guess that there's probably pike minnow out there that are over 20 years old.
Do you prefer meter of fish or yard of fish?
I think meter.
Okay.
What do you think?
I don't know. I have to think about it.
I mean, part of me, I'm all in on the metric system. Although I'm not, I got to admit, I'm not that great at it, like in picturing the metric system. But I wish we had gone to the metric system when they said we were going to do when I was in like third grade or whatever.
I mean, two things as kids they promised us. They promised us the metric system and flying cars. So, I mean, that was I maybe we're close on flying cars. I don't think we're that close on the metric system though.
No, not in yeah. Well, everywhere else is pretty close on it because they're using it.
I think a lot. Yeah, I think a lot of people have embraced it in that way. All right, let's talk mating on these guys.
Okay.
Anything special there?
So they're broadcast spawners. So it's pretty much every man's dream to be a broadcast spawner, I guess. But
have you ever typed in broadcast spawner into YouPorn to see what happens?
Hold on a sec. I'll be right back.
All right.
So
that wouldn't have happened 2 beers ago, by the way.
No, definitely not. So pike minnow, they lay from anywhere from 15 to 40,000 eggs at a time. And being a California native fish, so if you think about kind of the history of California, we're sort of had these historic droughts and our water only comes at certain times of the year and the rest of the year is no water. So pike minnow and a lot of other California fishes have evolved to kind of take advantage of a good year. So some years they won't spawn, like if there's not enough water, whatever, they don't go up, the flows aren't there, they don't go up into the smaller streams outside the major river systems and spawn. But when it's a good year, they can release 40,000 eggs and get them fertilized and hopefully have a good recruitment year. So typically what they do is the female.
So you can have a year with like 0 new pike minnows coming in?
Yeah.
Whoa.
And that may not be, statewide, but certainly in different drainages. And if it was a big enough drought, it would be statewide, if there wasn't enough water coming down to give the conditions that these fish need, they need to know that there's going to be water, that if they put this big effort into producing these eggs and fertilizing them, that there's some chance that those fish are going to make it into adulthood, because really that's what all the species are evolving to do, is kind of propagate their species. So typically what happens with these guys is they'll go upstream, kind of like you think of salmon doing, although they obviously they don't go back in the ocean, and the males will be there and a female will swim up these riffles and release eggs, and 6 or 8 males at a time will be trying to fertilize them. And then the eggs, when they get fertilized, they actually stick to the substrate, and then they hatch, and the young, spend their early weeks in these small streams before they're big enough to kind of go back down in these other areas. Although some of them stay in the smaller streams all year as long as there's water.
And so talk about, I didn't know this, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but you talked about the importance of these guys, like they have, multiple reasons for being, I guess. I don't know how else to put that. Like,
it's kind of, that's something that I think quite a bit about, because obviously as humans, we put a lot of value judgments on species and animals and ourselves. And really, it depends on what angle you're looking at it from. If you're talking about the planet Earth, I mean, really, none of us are important to anything, right? I mean,
hey.
Well, you are. I mean,
Okay.
you are.
Whoa.
But I'm not. And so it's really just kind of an evolutionary path that led to this pike minnow. And if you're like me, you kind of see that evolutionary history and you value it, and you don't want humans to kind of change things so much. And really, in the history of California fish, humans have had a huge impact on the fish communities. I mean, we've introduced all kinds of species that shouldn't be here, and we've dammed up rivers and diverted water for irrigation. So it's really kind of miraculous that any of these fish are here at all anymore.
Yeah.
If you think about it. But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of a value judgment. And my particular value system is that I would like things to be changed as little as possible from when, European man first kind of set foot on this continent and started changing things. Of course, that means that I'm not here either. But, like I said earlier, that nobody would really care if I'm not here.
You are important.
Well, am I?
You're here. All right. Any last thoughts on the pike minnow that you want to impart to me and everyone else?
The only other thing that I kind of had in my bird bag about pike minnow is, so, and this kind of dovetails right into what I was just talking about the value judgments on species, is since they are a piscivorous fish and eat other fish, is fishermen, the prize fish in California for fishermen are like salmon and steelhead and that kind of thing. So pike minnow have always been viewed as eating the young salmon and steelhead. And so fishermen have historically not liked pike minnow because they like to fish for salmon and steelhead. So there have been some cases in different rivers where they'll actually have derbies to see how many pike minnow people can catch. And basically they just used to throw them up on the shore and just try to get them out of the river. They wouldn't even take them and eat them or anything. But that hasn't seemed to have a huge impact on their population. But the main reason that they are kind of hard on salmon and steelhead, obviously they evolved together. Both are California native fishes, but since we have dammed these rivers up, a lot of times the salmon and steelhead will come up to these dams and they can't go any further. And the same with the pike minnow when they're up spawning, but they all get kind of concentrated behind these dams. And so it's only in those instances where the pike minnow actually really kind of have any kind of impact on the salmon and steelhead, numbers to any degree that would matter at all. So it's a little bit of it's a little bit ironic that people are trying to get rid of pike minnow when they created the problem that they think pike minnow are causing.
All right, I think you made a pretty strong case for the pike minnow. I wonder if you changed any mind. I wonder if any guys are listening to this, people are listening to this going, man.
I bet you all my listeners change their mind.
I would think.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked Korean baseball last time. I want to ask American baseball 2020 season. We would have been a month and a half into the season at this point. What are we looking? What predictions on what we're looking at?
Okay.
I wanted to throw it at you.
So
So full disclosure, Steve and I are both born in Southern California and big Dodger fans. We bonded over this for years. And then the pain of watching Northern California baseball of Giants fans, just rip off championship after championship in the 2000s. So just wanted to put that out there for everybody. What in a bigger, not talking Dodgers, I'm talking baseball. What's your prediction for what we have in store for us?
So here's my prediction, and you're kind of putting me on the spot here, but I think we're going to have some sort of modified season, possibly a tournament like they've been talking about, that's maybe isolated to some narrower geographic areas, and a limited number of games. Obviously, we can't play baseball in November and December because of the weather, but I think it'll happen on a much smaller scale and in a much smaller geographic setting.
So you're saying there will be some sort of season?
I think so. If
season or tournament or something.
Tournament, something, but I think it's going to be much smaller in scope. Obviously, we're not going to get
no fans in the stands.
I think there's not going to be any fans for sure in the stands. I mean, I'll be watching, but that may be it. All right. How about you? What do you think?
I don't think it'll be. I think they're going to try to do it bigger, broader. I don't think they're going to try to limit it geographically. I don't think it'll be a tournament. I think it will be a no fans in the stands. We might not see baseball till August, maybe July. Yeah, but they are. I mean, they're practicing in small batches right now. Like I think there's 4 guys allowed on the field. I'm not positive.
Oh, I hadn't even heard that.
Yeah, some teams, depending on the rules of the where you live. So I think that there'll be double headers. I think you'll start by having AB squads of the same team playing each other for like games. Really? So you'll have a Dodgers AB team, and a blue white, and then you'll have a Giants black red and black orange. Then it'll eventually evolve. But I mean, I think the season might be like 40 games or 50 games or something like that. So, and I don't think they'll have 25-man rosters. I think that you're going to have, smaller rosters. Are they going to be less innings? I don't know.
Well, I was thinking bigger.
Because you cycle. Yeah, but they don't anything with crowd, man. They don't like crowd. No one likes crowds.
Right.
So I don't know. So I think that, like, to your point, I don't think it'll be tournament, but I think it'll be teams who have to stay around each other. And I don't think so here's the other reason it'll be short, is because it will be these players are gonna have to live with each other for a month at a time and not see their families. So I think these players would just, you have millionaires, complaining about it. So these guys will agree to 8 weeks or something like that. Like we'll do 8 weeks of like, living, playing or something like that. I don't know. That's my prediction. All right. What did we learn? On this episode? So we learned that Bird Brag's a way better name than eBird. There's no doubt about that.
I don't know. eBird.
Whoa. Oh, am I going to offend the eBird community?
What if it was iBird?
Well, yeah. I mean, eBird.
I like eBird.
We learned that the first thing I thought of was Gilligan's Island when you said the word minnow, or when you asked me minnow.
Yeah, the SS minnow.
Yeah, that is great. Gilligan. Koi and carp are minnows. What?
They're the same species, Greg.
What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Fish don't have tree rings.
Not quite as accurate, yeah.
Right. Drought or, some sort of other, what I would say, inclement weather could equal no pike minnows for a year. Very little, or like stop. And then you believe that there'll be a modified season, possibly tournament, narrow geographic area. Like that's your prediction for. I'm going to go much more. I would lean much more on your prediction than my prediction, by the way.
Why?
So, I think you know.
Who's that?
Do you hear my dogs going crazy?
I do. Is that
Yeah,
Lucy?
pizza guys. Pizza
that's-
guys here.
Oh, nice.
Pizza coming.
Nice.
Yeah, no, Scout. So
I guess we're not doing another episode then.
no, we're doing another episode for sure. I just don't know if it'll be today. All right, buddy. It's time to say goodbye. Any last words?
That's all I got, Greg. Oh, the only other thing, you talked about eBird. So on Saturday, eBird kind of has started this thing called Global Big Day, where they try to encourage as many people. It's International Migratory Bird Day. They try to encourage as many people as possible to go out and bird watch and create lists of birds they see to kind of contribute to this huge citizen science project. So Saturday, Global Big Day. Check out eBird for more info. Of course,
Okay.
this one I won't see the light of day.
You're crazy if you think
Maybe
that's tomorrow.
20.
You think you think one, not only do you think we're gonna post this tonight, you think that people are gonna listen tonight, get on
2021.
eBird. Yeah. Okay. We'll go, yeah, we'll count on 2021. We'll circle back to this. We'll come back to this.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good, Greg.